Boarding on a seaplane in the Maldives is one of the greatest feeling, I must say. But getting here from Canada was a journey. After long flights and delays that almost made us miss our connection, we somehow made it halfway across the world. So before this seaplane takes off, let me quickly show you how we got here. Currently, there are no direct flights from North America to the Maldives, so you'll always need at least one layover. For this trip, we chose Dubai, and I'll tell you more about that later. Our flight from Vancouver to Dubai took about 15 hours. Then we had a 4-hour layover before our connecting flight to Valana International Airport. We purposely booked a 4-hour layover because we all know how travel can go. Delays, immigration lines, and I also had a drone with me, which can sometimes mean extra time at the airport. So I thought 4 hours would be more than enough. But then, 2 hours before our scheduled departure, Air Canada sent notification. Our flight was delayed by an hour. That's okay. Then another 1-hour delay. Then another one. And just like that, our 4-hour layover in Dubai turned into only 1 hour. Very stressful. So when we finally landed in Dubai, we were literally sprinting off the plane. Somehow we were directed into a bus that took us to another terminal, and I don't even think we went through immigration. But somehow we made it. 21 hours after leaving home, a 15-hour flight, delays, and sprinting through the airport at 3 a.m., we were completely spent. And there was no way our bags were going to make it with us. So we had to make a decision, either miss the flight or leave the bags behind. Well, if that, we're getting on the plane. The bags can follow, hey? 28 hours later, and this view made it all worth it. Suddenly, I'm not tired anymore. In my opinion, this is one of the best airports in the world. You walked out of the arrivals terminal in Male and you're immediately by the ocean. No taxi lines, no highways, just boats waiting to take travelers to their islands. Well, unless you're going downtown Male, then yes, there are taxi lines. And this is where we waited for our boat to our destination. Honestly, the moment you step outside, it already feels like the vacation has begun. We were so impressed by Emirates' service. It was top-notch. Our bags took a 30-minute boat ride to Maafushi and showed up at our hotel about 6 hours later. Maldives is a Muslim country, and as a tourist, we should respect that. If you're coming here, set aside your desire for pork. There's no alcohol, and bikinis are only allowed at designated bikini beaches. Not every white sandy beach here is meant for swimsuits. But wherever we can be in our swimsuits, you know it. We're going in. On our first full day here, I went out on this dive boat with Benny and the rest of the divers. But I didn't dive for reasons only women would understand. The dive masters were all incredibly nice and friendly. One of them even offered to take some drone shots of me. And as you can see, I handed him the drone without even thinking I might just lose it. And I had just bought it 3 weeks before this trip. But it turns out he knew exactly what he was doing, probably better than I did. He even showed me a few tips and tricks. Here, he's showing me the hand catch. It's a way to land a drone when there's no safe surface like on a moving boat, and ever since, it's become my go-to move. The next day, we headed out on our tour and our first adventure, swimming with the sharks. These guys are surprisingly chill. They're slow, nocturnal, and they can reach up to 10 feet long. But don't worry, they're harmless and mostly just love to relax near the seafloor. I tried my best to interact with them carefully, trying not to touch them, because this was definitely fun for me, but I didn't want to be the one causing them any distress. There were times when they swam right up to me, and one thing I can tell you, their skin feels like sandpaper. You know, the slightly used kind, not super rough, but also not soft. So here's 3.5 minutes of nurse sharks, colorful fish, and me struggling to swim. I'm seriously hoping you're not tired of my underwater videos yet, because this tour is just a glimpse of our underwater adventure in the Maldives. If you stay tuned for my next upload in the coming weeks, it will be all about the scuba diving that we did. Okay, I lied. Mostly Benny did. Anyway, we saw all kinds of sharks, or he saw all kinds of sharks. I saw some. There's tiger sharks, black tip and white tip reef sharks. There's also spinner sharks. There's turtles, Napoleon wrasse, guitar fish. There's manta rays, which I was most excited about, and all kinds of colorful small fish and other marine life. So stay tuned. In the meantime, let's get back to our boat tour and our next stop, swimming with stingrays in Florido. These graceful creatures are incredible to watch. They glide through the water like birds, using their wing-like fins to steer. So don't be fooled by their sting. It's mostly for defense. Stingrays are also masters of camouflage. often burying themselves in the sand to hide our ambush prey. And here's a cool fact. They can actually sense tiny electrical signals from other animals, helping them find food even when it's buried under the sand. Five days later, it's time for us to head to Dhigurah. To get there, we had two options. Go all the way back to Malé and take two separate boats, or join a whale shark tour that stops for lunch in Dhigurah. Easy choice, right? It saves us a full day of traveling, we get to snorkel along the way, and lunch is included. And this part wasn't even planned. A pod of dolphins suddenly appeared, giving us the perfect excuse to stop for a little dolphin watching. Isn't it amazing? This is where the whale sharks are usually spotted, but I decided not to jump in for obvious reasons. I'm a nervous swimmer and I'd rather get to Dhigurah stress-free. Besides, we saw whale sharks in the Philippines several years ago. And here's Benny and his Superman pose in Oslo, Cebu. The island of Dhigurah is about 3 kilometers long, so most people just walk everywhere. But we decided to rent bikes for the full experience. Bike rentals here usually cost between $5 and $10 US, so very reasonable. Dhigurah is a skinny 3-kilometer long island that's packed with charm. Unlike Maafushi, it's not the easiest island to get to, which means it's much quieter and less crowded, so it's perfect if you want a more relaxed vibe. Dhigurah is famous for whale shark sightings almost year-round, and it's also home to a long, beautiful sandbank that stretches off the island, which is ideal for snorkeling or just soaking up the sun. I'll show you later. If you're heading to the Maldives or thinking of going, here are some things to remember. First, most places take credit cards, but it's best to carry some cash in US dollars or Maldivian rupiah. Second, ATMs are limited, so make sure you withdraw cash when you can. Malé is your safest bet on this one. Next, you want to pack light, girl. Traveling between islands usually means speedboats, ferries, or seaplanes, and you'll be dragging your bags around if you're not prepared. Number 4, respect local culture. Modest clothing is required. And then number 5, alcohol isn't allowed, so don't even think about bringing it from duty-free abroad. And then lastly, check the weather. The Maldives is stunning, but bad weather can easily dampen your trip, just like anywhere else. And as I promised, here's the sandbank at one end of the island. And the only way you can get here is by walking. 10 days into the trip and we're off to another island. You know the drill by now. New island means another boat ride back to Male. So another tip if you're coming to the Maldives, bring seasickness pills. Trust me on this one. The ocean can get a little wild out there. And just like that, we're back at my favorite airport again. Our next stop, Rasdhoo. On our first night here, we were told we had to check out the shark feeding point. So this is a spot by the harbor where nurse sharks come in at night when fishermen clean their catch. So of course we had to go see it for ourselves. We saw fishermen leaving, but there were tourists throwing in fish to attract the sharks. So here's a little bit of it. The next morning, we had a quick, easy breakfast, and here's Benny heading out for scuba diving without his wife. Well, I went with him on the first dive, but I got a bit of a headache afterwards, so I decided to skip the second one. But as soon as their boat left the dock, look what took over their spot. Rasdhoo is a very small island. It's less than a kilometer across, so you can walk the entire island in about 15-20 minutes, depends on how fast you walk. Despite its size, the island is famous among divers. It's surrounded by world-class dive sites, which is why many divers choose to stay here instead of the expensive resort islands. Unlike many luxury resorts in the Maldives, Rasdhoo is a local inhabited island, which means a visitor can experience real Maldivian culture, local food, and guest houses instead of just private resorts. We stayed here for 5 days, but most of our time was spent diving. Stay tuned for our next video where we'll show you more of that. But for now, here's a little more of Rasdhoo before we head back to Male for the most awaited part of the trip. Back in Male, we took a short bus ride to the Seaplane terminal, which is just a few minutes from the main international terminal at Valana International Airport. And this is to catch a ride to our final destination, which is Reethi Beach Resort. And you would not believe how excited I was. I felt like a little girl who was gifted a giant dollhouse or something. You know what I mean? The seaplane ride itself was something I consider a highlight of the trip. It was my first time flying on a plane this small, and the experience was incredible. Riding a seaplane for the first time is completely different from regular flight. The plane is small, the engines are loud, and you're sitting just a few feet away from the cockpit. So it feels much more personal and adventurous. And can we talk about how casual the pilots are? Shorts and Birks, then barefoot the entire flight. If I were learning to be a pilot, this would be a dream. Flying low over turquoise water, tiny islands, and bright coral reefs scattered across the ocean, the whole ride feels less like transportation and more like a scenic tour. For me, it was definitely one of the highlights of this trip. About 40 minutes later, we landed on a floating seaplane dock in the middle of the ocean, where a boat was waiting to take us the rest of the way to the resort. Isn't it cool? It feels expensive. We decided to splurge a little on this part of the trip. I was born kuripot, so we were still thrifty enough not to book one of those overwater bungalows. You know, the one that you see on the internet when you search for it. Instead, we stayed in our own little bungalow, just a few steps from the ocean. And honestly, it was the perfect balance. We still got the beautiful beach, the sound of the waves, and easy access to the water, without the luxury price tag. And I guess a travel vlog wouldn't be complete without a room tour. So, to wrap up this trip, we'll give you a quick tour of our bungalow. You're on live video.
What?
This beach resort is located on Ba'a Atol in the northern Maldives. It's a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve known for its rich biodiversity and healthy coral reefs. The area is famous for Ganduvaru Bay, which is one of the best places in the world to see large gatherings of manta rays and plankton-eating whale sharks. But you gotta keep it in mind, it's seasonal, so best to do your research before planning this trip. The resort even has its own house reef, so you can snorkel right off the beach and spot incredible marine life. And those sunsets over Turquoise Lagoon, absolutely unforgettable. Seriously, don't forget your camera. Unfortunately, drones aren't allowed on this island, so no aerial shots for you. But don't worry, I got plenty of me shots instead. You're welcome. We're boarding the seaplane once again, and it's still just as exciting. This is our last day in Male, and tomorrow we're flying to Dubai back on a commercial plane.
Life jacket will be located underneath your seat, standard like that. We have 4 emergency two at the cockpit, one at the right side, one at the back. And we remind you that smoking using electronic cigarette is prohibited in this aircraft. Please read the safety instruction seatbelt in front of you before takeoff. Thank you for flying Mantaya, your tropical wedge flight. Thank you, sir.
And that wraps up our Maldives adventure. Thank you so much for coming along with us on this trip. It really means a lot that you watched and supported the video. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more travel adventures. We've got more videos coming your way, so stay tuned. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.